Hi, my name is Taylor Gast, and today we're going to be talking about cybersecurity, data privacy, and eventually some vendor management in some future videos as well. And this is kind of a background introduction and just trying to set the scene, really. One of the big things that we want to make businesses aware of is the fact that there are some pretty large risks that businesses are really beginning to acknowledge and react to. For background, we can think of the fact that there's been just a great, enormous rise in the amount and quantity and sort of collection and use of data and information by businesses these days. Think about the Internet of Things, the fact that a lot of us have smart devices in our homes that are collecting information. Your business might be involved in e-commerce. We all carry around mobile devices. These are all very common things these days that are producing some somewhat unintended consequences, and in other cases even big risks for businesses that we may want to address. For other businesses, information might actually be and maybe the most important asset that the business has, and that's an asset worth protecting. And lastly, on that point, basically every business has sensitive information. We might be talking about social security numbers, tax information, HR information, other employment, data. There's just a whole wealth of information that businesses are taking in and using these days that we want to be thinking about. So that's some background on information, and when we start talking about risks, the landscape is just expanding at an unimaginable rate, basically. Cybercrime currently represents the second most reported economic crime these days. It represents risks that are changing at a daily pace. We're talking about ransomware. We're talking about phishing. We might even be talking about something as simple as misplacing a piece of paper with sensitive information on it, or a thumb drive, for instance. These are huge risks. Issues like that can represent problems that arise, let's say an employee sues a business because one of those things happens, or a customer sues the business because one of those things happen. There are also regulatory issues that arise as well. If your business is regulated under HIPAA, for instance, as a healthcare entity, the potential fines are enormous, and your business really needs to think about addressing those. And one of the biggest risks of all sort of arises from the fact that businesses are increasingly partnering with third parties, or we might call them vendors. And these vendors can perform all sorts of services for a business. It's a really helpful service that these vendors often provide. But increasingly, vendors are a large source of risk. And in fact, 63% of all data breaches are linked to these third party vendors. Some of the highest profile risks, breaches that have occurred in the last few years, in fact, have been caused by vendors. We're talking Target, we're talking the Republican National Committee, we're talking Netflix. I think in the case of Target, we're talking about an HVAC service that came in, and because that HVAC system was linked to Target's other systems, Target had a rather enormous data breach of not HVAC information, but customer information. So these are really potentially huge risks. And despite the fact that these vendors are holding information, it's the company, it's your business that is responsible for notifying individuals who are affected by data breaches, for instance. So to give an example, in Michigan, if a vendor has a breach of your customer's information, you are responsible to notify your customers that that has happened. And if you don't, your business can be fined $250 for each instance that an individual was not notified. So those fines can add up very quickly, obviously, if you have customers or if you have employees that are, large numbers. So the real best practice here that's evolved is to implement a vendor management program as part of a much broader, comprehensive privacy and security program. And in future videos, we're going to be talking about both of those topics. If you have any questions at all, feel free to contact me or go to our website at fosterswift.com.